really what I want to talk about is Mahomes becoming the GOAT. Who would have ever thought that we would be even having this conversation comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady? Welcome back to Net Worth. I'm your host, Justin Pugh, and today we are talking Super Bowl. Everybody and their mother knows what went down yesterday, but if you didn't, the Kansas City Chiefs are your 2023-24 Super Bowl champions. They beat the San Francisco 49ers 25-22, and it is a dagger in the heart because your boy picked the 49ers to win, and they did not do that. Now, it looked good early on. 49ers were up 10 at one point during the third quarter. They were up 10-0 almost the entire first half, but they let Patrick Mahomes just stick around. If you're watching the game and you've watched the Chiefs this season, you know that if you let Mahomes and company stick around, they'll make you pay. And they did. They came on late. It was back and forth. The game was a little bit of a snooze fest. I mean, it was only 13 points scored in the first half. It picked up a little bit in the third quarter. But really, those final few drives where they went back and forth really is what made it go. Overall stats, Mahomes went for 333, 2 touchdowns, had a couple carries, some big carries late in the game. The 49ers didn't make many mistakes. Obviously, they had a couple fumbles that first drive, McCaffrey fumbling it, but Brock Purdy, did what he had to do. 255 and a touchdown. I think if the 49ers win the game, Juwan Jennings would have been the MVP. He threw for a touchdown. He caught a touchdown, but obviously it was too much for the Niners, and they came back. The Chiefs came back and won. I don't think the 49ers players, and it's a fact that came out later after the game, that they didn't know the overtime rules. I didn't know the overtime rules. Everyone's sitting at home like, what's Fred Warner doing? No one knew the overtime rules. Apparently, some players in the Chiefs said Andy Reid went over them, but you would assume that's what a team would do going into that game. So obviously, both teams had a chance at it. It was probably better for the 49ers to go on defense first. That looking back, they should have done that, and so they would know what they have to do. 49ers went down and scored 3 points, so the Chiefs knew if they got 7, they would win the game. Obviously, you could tables could be flipped there, and they would probably prefer to change what they did. But I was looking at it like the 49ers have a great offense. They're going to go down, eat some clock up, put some points on the board, and rest their defense a little bit. And they had a great drive. They couldn't score, and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs win, and you got to give a tip of the cap to everyone across the board. I obviously mentioned Mahomes' stats, but if you look at it, Andy Reid had an unbelievable game, called a great game. Probably the most valuable player, coach, anyone in the Chiefs organization was Steve Spagnuolo, former coach of mine. Just called a hell of a game. Late in the third and fourth quarter, they really slowed down the 49ers. It looked like the 49ers were going to jump out to a commanding lead and never look back. And the defense held them in there and kept it close. And when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes to keep a game close, it really is hats off to them. The next person that I want to give a shout out to is Brett Veach, who is the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at some of the guys, obviously when you're paying Patrick Mahomes so much money, and we'll get into kind of the contract of Mahomes and how remarkable it is what the Chiefs did. You look at some of the drafts and the players he's able to surround Patrick Mahomes with, because when you're paying a quarterback over 16, 17, 18% of the cap, you can't move that money around. In comparison, the 49ers are paying everybody and have talent across the board everywhere because they're paying Brock Purdy $870,000 compared to the 44 some odd million that Patrick Mahomes is making this year. You look at some of the guys that the GM from the Chiefs have drafted. You have Creed Humphreys, all-pro center, Trey Smith, Pro Bowl guard. You have McDuffie on defense. And the defense as a whole, Chris Jones played unbelievable. You have Carl Flanakis. I think I'm saying his name right. Sorry if I'm not. Ladarius Sneed. The defense came to play. The defense is what helped propel this Chiefs team. Obviously, Mahomes is going to get all the accolades, and we'll jump more into that. But you really have to give a shout out to all the role players that played a huge role in this. Jawan Taylor, they didn't make a big deal about him getting out of his stance. He looked great yesterday. And Left tackle Donovan Smith, who's just perennially just an Iron Man playing in every game. For him to go out and get another Super Bowl was great to see. And then McCole Hardman, who was on the Jets, makes the game-winning touchdown play. Everyone came to play for the Chiefs. But I look at this as the 49ers really squandered away opportunities. You look at Kyle Shanahan. I know I said his father's name in the last program. With the block field goal, the game would have been over. With the punt hitting off a player's leg, just some really simple things that the Niners didn't execute that would have turned that game in their favor. They looked great. 4-man rush. I talked about the Chiefs offensive line versus the 49ers defensive line. I would have liked to have seen them just stick in a 4-man rush. They were getting home. They were creating havoc on Patrick Mahomes. And they did an unbelievable job. It's just a little bit too little, too late for them. It's going to go down as a classic game. This was a huge game for the legacy of Mahomes. It just seems like the 49ers keep finding themselves at the short end of the stick in these massive games. But great Super Bowl. Really enjoyed it. Had some friends and family over, and my daughter's first Super Bowl, so it was a good one. Really, what I want to talk about is Mahomes becoming the GOAT. Who would have ever thought that we would be even having this conversation comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady? Now, clearly, Tom Brady is the GOAT. He played until he was 45 years old. He's done things that no one has ever done and may ever do in this league. But the fact that he's been retired for one season and already we're having the conversation is, can Patrick Mahomes surpass Tom Brady? I wanted to kind of look back and see where the stats shook out and how their numbers shook out. And obviously the league is transitioning. In 2001, when Brady won his first Super Bowl, the league is very different, but Brady really showed what you could do at the quarterback position. And this is just looking at the first 7 seasons of their careers, where they're at now. Now, obviously, we're going to add a few more in. These stats were pulled before the Super Bowl, so we'll add a few in. Super Bowl MVPs. Obviously, Mahomes now ekes out Brady in that category with 3. Total league MVPs. Mahomes has 2. Brady had after 7 seasons. This is after 7 seasons. So obviously you can't compare what Brady's done just yet, but like up until this point, Mahomes has 2 MVPs. Brady had 0 at that point. Mahomes has title appearance games, had 6. Brady had 4 playoff wins. Now Patrick has 5. Brady had 12. Super Bowl wins, it would be tied 3-3. Super Bowl appearances, it'll be 4 for Mahomes, 3 for Brady. So really when you start breaking it, and if we get into the regular season stats through the first 7 games, Mahomes leads in every statistical category. But stats aren't everything. It's that it factor. And what really made me start to think that Mahomes is on this trajectory to surpass Tom Brady potentially, a lot of things need to stay to happen. He needs to stay healthy, which is what made Tom Brady so great. But Mahomes has 17 more years, potentially, to get 4 more Super Bowls and tie with Tom Brady. Now, the one thing that I talked about last year and this year was Mahomes has done the most with the least. And when I say least, it's not to degrade the team that he's on, but no quarterback has won a Super Bowl making as much percent of the cap, which the cap is 220 some odd million, and Mahomes is making, I think his cap hit was this year. Let's look it up real quick. It's sad that we can just look up guys' contracts quickly on the internet. He's making 28, he's making 16.9% of the cap. So and next year he's making 23.6% of the cap. So there's never been a quarterback to do more with less than Patrick Mahomes based on the salaries of guys around him. Obviously the Peyton, I think, was the next highest up there, but Tom Brady's always took less to keep the talent around him. We'll see if Mahomes does that. I think it may do better for his career to keep more talent around him. At times you look this year and you were like, if the Chiefs just had a receiver, they could, be unstoppable. But when you're paying guys like Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones, top end dollars, the money can't go to other players, which makes it even more impressive what Brett Veach has done, the GM, to keep those young, talented players that we had mentioned. So, on this trajectory, I think Mahomes now is the mini GOAT. We know that. But I think he has a chance if he can stay healthy, and we see some of the body work and things that he does. There's no reason to believe in this day and age that he can't play at least another 10 more years that he could surpass. You saw Kelsey say he was going to come back. He played an unbelievable game, and we'll talk about him and Taylor Swift here and the dollars that they generated, because that's what we love at this show, what that impact has made. But I really think that if they can keep this core together, and potentially if Patrick renegotiates, and they've talked about renegotiating to lower his cap hit, what the Chiefs will be able to do going forward. Now, on the other end, and the reason why I love the 49ers so much, and Mahomes is making me eat all my words on how you should build a football team, but Brock Purdy, like I said, he was only making $870,000 this year. What's unique about Purdy, obviously everyone knows this was his second year in the league. He was Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. If he would have gone one pick later and not one pick later, if he would have gone undrafted and not been picked, he would have been eligible for a contract renegotiation this offseason. But the NFL CBA and negotiated with the players and the owners states that you can't do that after 2 years. He's slated to make $985,000 next season, which is pales in comparison to the top quarterback money. There will be peers that are making 40 to 50, potentially 60 times, Dak's going to get a new deal this year, what Brock Purdy is making, which will allow the 49ers to just restock, go out and get more high-priced guys, because they won't have to pay the quarterback position. So, is that fair? Is it not fair? It's the hand that Brock Purdy was dealt. I'm sure if looking back, he wishes, if he could change things, he would have gone undrafted and signed with the San Francisco 49ers. But you can't make that change. He's probably pretty happy with where he's at now. He's staring down the barrel of a massive contract next season. He did all the things he wanted to do. Now, did he win the game? No, but he looked great. He didn't make mistakes. He made some throws that a lot of guys can't even make in the NFL. So it definitely was a great showing for Brock Purdy, Arizona guy. Shout out to him. I'll give my predictions, and I may be alluding to it right now, of who I think will end up back in the Super Bowl next year. But we'll go into that later. So the next up, we have to talk about Kelce and Taylor Swift. It was the biggest story of the NFL season this year. You saw President Joe Biden tweet about it. You saw the NFL commissioner in there talking to her yesterday. She's probably the best thing that happened to the NFL this year in terms of money. There was, I think, 330 more eyeballs on the NFL, which is the size and population of America. She's added another America to watching the NFL. They're probably doing whatever they can to keep that couple going. Kelce played great in the game. Obviously, there was a little incident there with Andy Reid. Have to get my coffee in this morning. I didn't love to see the Andy Reid shove, but the passion that these guys are playing and wanting to be in the games, the biggest moments, the biggest times, is the reason why the Chiefs are who they are. So I think if the Chiefs would have lost, people would have made a big deal about it, but they won, and winning solves everything. And that was great to see. Lastly, a few of the last things I want to touch on, my favorite Super Bowl commercial. I know everyone loves that. Drop what you loved and which Super Bowl commercial was your favorite. I love the Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Tom Brady on the ones and twos, creating their little boy band, trying to get on the J-Lo album. I think that was hysterical to me. The shout outs to former movies they have done. How about them donuts? So that took the cake for me. Best commercial. Favorite dish that I had yesterday, my mother-in-law made this Oreo dessert that was unbelievable. A buffalo chicken dip. We did pizza. We did wings. We did a little cheese board to start. So that was my day, man. The Super Bowl was great. It was an unbelievable game. It started slow, but ended very strong. And now, drum roll for my prediction on next year. The 49ers are back. With the low salary cap and the things that I mentioned before, Brock Purdy having that low cap hit, the 49ers are going to revamp. I still think Kyle Shanahan is an unbelievable coach. Christian McCaffrey. It'll be interesting to see what the 49ers do with some of the skill position guys. I know Debo is one of the best players in the NFL, and I know he's had some injury history. It'll be interesting to see what they do there. It'll be interesting to see what happens on the offensive line. You have a guy like Trent Williams, who is one of the best. I think he continues to play. It was great to see him get a chance to play in the Super Bowl. And then you have some defensive linemen that made some impacts. You have Chase Young and Randy Gregory, who will be free agents, most likely won't be back. Devastating injury for the Niners. I didn't mention this earlier. Dre Greenlaw. There was reports that potentially was ACL tear. Just super sad to see. He's probably the most physical player in the NFL. But the 49ers are going to reload. I think out of the NFC, the 49ers are still going to be the favorite to be back in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to go with my pick from last year. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills getting over the Snide next year, getting back to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go Bills, 49ers, Super Bowl next year. The 49ers finally win one. I keep going against my reaction of going against Patrick Mahomes, but I just think about it like the season ended for me in January and my body and how beat up my body still is. For the Chiefs to do this so many consecutive years in a row, their body's got to be taking a beating. Guys are getting a bit older. There's a big what if the Chiefs can go restructure Mahomes, and then they have to hit in the draft once again because Mahomes is not going to take that big of a hit. So can they do it again? Obviously, you'd be crazy to bet against it. I didn't want to pick the same exact Super Bowl. I think the 49ers are there, and I think the Bills finally get it figured out, and Bills Mafia is in the Super Bowl next year. All right, guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys sticking with me this season. We're going to start changing it up. I'm sitting down with my producer, Alex, and we're going to figure out some content for the offseason. But this was a Super Bowl, unbelievable season. Super up and down for me, signing and being back playing in the NFL. Where my future holds is to be determined. We'll see what happens in March. Obviously have some conversations with the Giants, but I'll keep you guys updated right here. Keep following along, keep subscribing, liking, all those good things we always talk about, and I will see you soon.